It's time to accelerate. Hi, I'm your host, Andy Paul. Join me as I host conversations with the leading experts in sales, marketing, sales automation, sales process, leadership, management, training, coaching, any resource that I believe to help you accelerate the growth of your sales, your business, and most importantly, you.
Hello and welcome to Accelerate. I couldn't be more excited to talk with my guest today. Joining me is Stu Heinecke, a Wall Street Journal cartoonist and author of a really interesting new book called How to Get a Meeting with Anyone, the Untapped Selling Power of Contact Marketing. You know, one of the byproducts of the modern sales process has been this dramatic increase in sort of the volume of cold emails and phone calls that your buyers and your target customers are receiving, and this flood of undifferentiated communications from sales reps, combined with an influx number of competitors in virtually every market segment, creates this sort of nightmare scenario in which sellers increasingly look alike in the eyes of your buyers. So how can you stand out? How can you make contact with the decision maker? And how can you cut through the clutter to capture their attention and get a few precious moments of their time? So my guest today, Stu Heinecke, is going to help us sort it all out and give us some great advice about how you can do this as well. So Stu, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you very much. Good to be here.
So take a minute, please. Just introduce yourself.
Well, you mean like giving my VIP statement?
Sure, why not?
Well, I've got this really crazy combination of backgrounds because I'm a marketer. In fact, I'm a DMA Hall of Fame nominated marketer, and I use cartoons. I've been using cartoons for a very, very long time in my marketing campaign, the campaigns that I've been creating for clients. But I'm also one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists, which is kind of a nice thing. Mm-hmm. Nice piece of social proof, I guess. I don't know.
Sure, like social proof. That's what I'd say. Yeah, absolutely.
And then, of course, I'm also an author. I've written actually 2 books before this, but this one, I'm really excited about this one in particular. It's something that came from this activity, this sort of shadow activity in my life, and really kind of it brought to light a shadow form of marketing, really, that a lot of people have been practicing. I've been using it my whole career, never knew what to call it. Always been amazed by it because it launched my business a long time ago, but it just has gotten me through to people I should never be able to reach. People like presidents and prime ministers and celebrities and lots of CEOs, C-level executives, and top decision makers.
All right, so let's take a step back. What is contact marketing? So we'll start there, and then we'll expand and let people understand how it works. But what is it, and how did you really come across this idea? I know it didn't originate with you necessarily, but how did you come across it first?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the very beginning of my career, I was looking to combine cartoons with direct mail campaigns, and I wanted to create these for the biggest game in town. That was the magazine publishers. They were the biggest, most sophisticated users of direct marketing, and I'd been told we were all told by the experts that humor didn't work in direct marketing, and I thought they just didn't have it right. They didn't understand what cartoons were about. So I wanted to spread it out there. Mm-hmm. So I got first thing that happened was I got 2 assignments, one from Rolling Stone and one from Bon Appetit magazine, to create test campaigns. Those went up against their controls, and both of these beat their controls. That's an amazing feat because, again, these are very, very sophisticated testers. They're always testing, or we're always testing a lot against their controls. So their controls are really, really hard to beat. And for anyone who may not be familiar with that term, we're talking about a statistical control in a test. But in the case of direct marketing, that statistical control is actually the very, very best thing that the marketers ever come up with and used. So if you tie the response generated by that, you've tied the record, the all-time record for them. And if you beat it, that's really a big thing. So to have both of those first test campaigns beating controls was just a big home run. And so now I wanted to spread it to the rest of the publishing world. And what that meant was I needed to reach let's say 24 VPs and directors of circulation for the big publishing houses in the country. So I'm talking about Time Inc. and Time Warner and I'm sorry,
Condé
not Time
Nast
Inc. But yeah, Condé Nast is one. The Wall Street Journal, Forbes. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So there would, but I needed to reach about 24 people, and so I thought, well, okay. And by the way, if I needed to put this campaign together to reach out to them. And by the way, if I got the kind of response that people talk about for direct marketing or direct mail, a 1% response rate, which is it's not a valid number, but if we used it for a moment, and I got a 1% response rate, which everyone seems to say is a really terrific response rate to a direct mail campaign, that would have been a disaster because it would have meant I got really close to reaching one of them.
Right.
In other words, nothing would have happened.
Nothing would happen.
Yeah. So what I needed to get was, not even a 10% response rate, which would be huge for a direct response campaign, but 10% would have been a disaster too. I needed to reach all of them. And I wanted to not only reach all of them, but I wanted to convert all of them to clients. So, and I've been told that in direct marketing circles, 100% response rates are impossible, but whatever. I needed to do this. So I put together a campaign.
Well, really, in sales, you're talking about prospecting and sales. No one gets 100% response rate in prospecting and sales either. So
generally, that's true generally. So here, so I put together this campaign. It was a suitable for framing print of a cartoon, personalized to each of these people. I was these high value prospects that I was going after, and then with it was a letter that said, "This is the device I just used to generate two campaigns that beat controls, one for Bon Appetit, one for Rolling Stone. I think we should put this to the test for your titles." So that I sent that out, and I got all of them to respond. In fact, all of them became clients. It launched my business, and it came from this campaign that I spent maybe $100 on.
So you sent them a framed cartoon that was customized.
So not even a framed one, just suitable for framing. They had to go get their own frame.
Okay, even better. So you sent them. So how big was it? Like 8.5 by 11 or
8 by 10?
8 by 10. So
it's from the standard size.
Did you send it regular mail, or did you hand deliver, or you FedEx it? How did you deliver it to them?
I put it in an envelope and sent it that way. Okay. It wasn't even FedExed.
All right.
Very little ceremony tied to it, or sense of event. But it launched my business, and so I called that a contact campaign way back then. And I got really interested in what other people were doing. At first I thought, well, isn't that cool? I reached all of them, and I started experimenting with, well, who can I reach and how can I do it? And I ended up reaching either on my own or on behalf of clients, presidents, prime ministers, all the people I just mentioned a while ago, that CEOs and C-level executives and so on. And then I thought, well, God, isn't that great? I've got a secret weapon. Isn't that cool? And then I thought, well, wait a minute, what's everyone else doing? I'm not the only one, obviously, to face that challenge of, there are just this handful of people, or maybe it's 100 people. If it's a Fortune 500 sales team, maybe it's 100, maybe it's 500 people that they'd really like to break through to and strike up a business relationship with them. But so as I looked around and discovered how others were doing this, the other thing I discovered was that no one really had a name for it. So that's where the name contact marketing comes from. It was derived from my own use of contact campaign all those years ago. But that's what contact marketing is. It's these campaigns that are focused on just, I was going to say a handful. It could be as few as one contact, or it could be a couple dozen. It could be 100, but it's a really small number. In marketing terms, it's a very, very small number. And it's focused on generating contact with these people who are just of ultra high value and very, very difficult to reach.
Right. And really, I may summarize that just a little bit differently for the people listening, is that it is a highly personalized campaign and methodology you use to, as you said, contact and meet high value, ultra high value contacts, would be CEO, C-level people, that if you're able to get through and talk to them and ultimately win the business, they're going to transform your business.
Yeah.
And so if you think about this, if you're a startup and you've identified, look, here's a set of logos that we want to do business with. Right now, oftentimes they turn loose their sort of lowest level salesperson, a sales development rep, to go out and start making phone calls and sending emails to try to work their way to get to that person, which is impersonal, even in the way that they claim they personalize a lot of times. The sales reps really don't. Here's a different approach, again, that anybody can execute, highly personalized, very focused, very targeted, with huge potential impact.
Yeah, and you mentioned startups. Startups are in a burn rate situation generally, so they've got to do a lot of. They've got to create, or they've got to connect with some very, very important people to them very quickly, or the time runs out on the clock. They don't exist anymore. So it's not only with new clients, but it's also investors, and it could be strategic partners. I mean, it's really the same thing that we all need to do in our businesses, but they've got to do it really, really quickly, or they snuff out.
Yeah, and so it's really at the heart of this. So again, using a highly personalized methodology, and we're going to talk about other examples that you're going to be able to provide about how people are doing this, in addition to your cartoon, which is a very, very inspired way to do it. So one of the things you talk about in your book is that you got these high response rates, and how people respond to this, and the role of the gatekeepers, the proverbial gatekeeper, in this whole process. And so address that, because everybody's saying, that's going to go to their assistant, and their assistant's going to make sure I never see the guy. So how do you work that in conjunction with using one of these really personalized outreaches to work with the assistant to make it happen for you?
Well, yeah. So what I'm going to do to answer that question, I'm going to describe a little bit about what I do with cartoons,
sure,
as well. But
great.
But directly to your question, executive assistants are amazing. I'm a big fan of executive assistants. When you talk to salespeople, a lot of them will ask, "How do you get around them?" And that's not what you're supposed to do. That's probably the problem. I'm sure it's the problem, because they can see that a mile away or sense that a mile away, and when they do, then they shut down. But the fact is that executive assistants, think of who they are. If we're talking about the executive assistant to a CEO of a company, that assistant is living really pretty much the same reality as any vice president or any C-suite executive in that company. They report directly to the CEO, just like they do. I mean, both do. Mm-hmm. The assistants are present at a lot of the meetings. They're very aware of what the CEO's vision is, what the CEO is trying to accomplish, and what's on their priority lists at any given time. And so, certainly one of the things they're doing is protecting the CEO's time. And if you think about how valuable CEO, you hear all these complaints about CEO pay. Well, their time is quite valuable, and their contribution to the companies is really quite valuable. So certainly their time is valuable, and the assistant's job partly is a big part of it is to protect that time so that they can remain focused. Obviously, that's what they need to do. But the other half of the executive assistant's role in that case, as to whether someone gains access or not, is that they're also, you could think of them as talent scouts or vice presidents of access. Either way, their job is also to spot those opportunities that the CEO, and we'll just say CEO is a euphemism for anybody who's the center of enterprise opportunity for you. Right. It may not be the CEO, but we'll call them CEOs for now. So, but part of their job is to also find those nuggets that wouldn't come to the executive's attention otherwise. So they're always on the lookout for things that their executive will find interesting and useful. They're always looking for that. And so in the case of the cartoon campaigns the campaigns that I use where I'm using cartoons, what usually happens is I'll call the executive assistant first. I'm always relieved to know that they have executive assistants, by the way. I'm always relieved to reach them because they're actually so helpful. And so I'll tell them is, in the book I describe creating a VIP statement, and mine is, "Hi, my name is Stu Heinecke. I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists. I'm a Hall of Fame nominated marketer, and I'm calling you today because I want to send a print of one of my cartoons. Happens to be about your boss. Sometimes it's one of my cartoons that was in the Wall Street Journal, and it's about your boss. And while I want it to be a surprise to him or her, I don't want it to be a surprise to you. So I'm reaching out to you because I want to coordinate this. So I'm not asking for permission to send it.
Right.
I might just confirm the address or something like that, but I'm not asking for permission. I'm just saying I'm going to send it, and I want to coordinate the details with you. And they're usually thrilled by all that. Oh my gosh, yes. Well, so if you wouldn't mind, if I can get your email address, I'd like to send you just all of these details in an email, so you don't have to remember them. And then when I have a tracking number, a FedEx tracking number, I'd like to get back in touch with you and let you know what that is. They're usually all over that, and once they've done that, they get a personalized cartoon piece from me as well. And so I'll usually send a card to them just to say thank you. And I know the effect of seeing this cartoon on the front of a card, and there's a signature by the cartoonist, and then if inside there's a note, and it's with that same signature. I mean, that's really kind of I know all these things that's kind of an ambush, isn't it? I mean,
to some degree,
they go, oh my God, look at this. This is cool.
Well, but it's cool, but also, probably it's a fact of life of an executive assistant's job oftentimes is not a lot of appreciation for what he or she does.
Yep.
And so to have somebody, I don't want to say necessarily validate, but to have somebody sort of validate by showing sincere appreciation for how they helped them, that goes a long ways. I mean, that's one of these basic human responses, emotions that you're not manipulating. You're just, people like it and it works.
Yeah, it goes a long way. And all these things fit a lot of, they fulfill several purposes at the same time. So when I'm sending a cartoon about the executive assistant and inside saying, thank you so much for your help on the phone. Thanks for being such a friendly voice on the other end of the line. I really mean it. I mean, they are that. And I just want them to know that you took a chance with me, and I want to recognize it and thank you for it. But the other thing is that I know what happens with those cards. They treat them like keepsakes. So they'll either end up on their desk or posted on the wall or something like that. And by the way, guess who sees that as they walk by?
Sure,
not just the boss, but seeing that
everybody that works for the boss sees it.
Yeah, and they like the fact that you're treating their assistant well. I mean, their assistant is someone they trust with a lot of the details of their businesses and of their careers, and just their success. And absolutely. So, they don't like it when people mistreat their executive assistants, and I think they like it a lot when they just treat them well, not bribe them, but treat them well and acknowledge them for who they are and what their contributions are, because they're huge.
Right. So
the other thing, then when that cartoon piece comes, it's a big 18 by 24 inch, quarter-inch thick foam core piece. It's basically a giant postcard, and on that there's a cartoon about the boss, about the person I'm actually trying to reach. So it's a cartoon about them. The cartoons are always very carefully created, and so that they say something that the boss, that the target executive really believes about themselves, so that the big board, that's what I call them, the big board becomes an heirloom to their careers, and they never throw these away. In fact, what they end up doing is keep them in their office in some form, either maybe just on the credenza somewhere where it doesn't quite fit, so it's kind of cocked to the side a little bit, and it has people. I mean, I just hear all these stories of people walking in and saying, "Where'd you get that? What is that?" Mm-hmm. "Oh, that's this thing," and they have to go into the story again, and they're reminded every time. So
well, I think
they're great devices for that.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is for people listening is that you don't have to be a cartoonist for this to work. You don't have to be sending an original piece of art. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about specific other ideas for campaigns that those of us who aren't cartoonists can implement. But I think also just to summarize what we talked about right here at this last point is that so much of what you hear and read about the gatekeepers, and you use the term, Stu, is, you're not trying to get around the gatekeeper. You're trying to enlist and enroll the gatekeeper in your objective, which is to have contact and possibly a meeting with the ultimate decision maker. So very important point for people to remember. And when we come back after the break, Stu's going to give us some ideas about specific campaign ideas that you could put to use in your business. So stay with us.
Hi, this is Andy. Connect and Sell is used by sales reps at nearly 1,000 companies, including hundreds of technology startups and several Fortune 500 companies, to overcome the challenges of getting prospects on the phone. Companies using Connect and Sell grow their revenues faster by enabling their sales reps to have more sales conversations in 90 minutes than they could otherwise achieve in an entire week. Connect and Sell can be deployed directly to your sales reps, or you can take advantage of their outbound on-demand service, which delivers qualified prospect meetings scheduled directly on your sales reps' calendars. Visit connectandsell.com to learn more about how Connect and Sell can start filling your pipeline today.
All right, I'm back with my guest, Stu Heinecke. We're talking about contact marketing, contact campaigns, really highly personalized outreach to specific people that you need to be able to be in touch. And if you can, like I said, have the ability to transform your business. So let's talk about some other ideas you had that in your book about successful contact campaigns. And as you sort of organize in the book, it's from paid to free. It could be $10,000. It could be zero. And there's not necessarily one being more costly. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be more successful than something that's free. It's just different approaches for different markets and different people. So maybe we start with some free ideas. I mean, what is things people can do? I mean, you always hear about, we're going to send them a letter, but it's going to be in a FedEx envelope so that they see it and it sits on their desk. But something a little more nuanced and thoughtful than that.
Yeah, I don't know that would work all that well today.
No.
One of the things that I've, by the way, by interviewing all these thought leaders for the book, sales thought leaders, I ended up with 20 categories of contact campaign types. And these things have been producing response rates as high as 100%. ROI, the record among the people interviewed for the book was just over 620,000% ROI. It's such a big number, it's hard to even interpret it.
Right.
And then all at a cost per contact that ranges from $0 to $10,000 per person. And so all in all, this is a really bizarre form of marketing. But you asked about the $0, the campaign types that are at the free end or the zero cost, and those would be using really smart uses of social media and email. I'll put phones as another one, and I'll put I did put mail in that category too, because if you're mailing to, I described at the outset the campaign I did for 24 people, and it cost me less than $100, and so it's virtually free, I would say. So, but social media is a wonderful place to be creating connections, and I'm always someone who I notice when channels get clogged, and I don't like it, and I'm always looking then for contrarian approaches. But and social media may be getting there, and maybe getting to sort of a saturation point, or maybe not. I don't know, but a lot of people use it, and I'm amazed. I'm just amazed at what it does to open doors that you might not have opened otherwise.
So give an example from your book of how somebody used it in a way that was really a successful contact campaign, not just following somebody or replying to a tweet.
Sure. Well, sort of a simple one would be, just taking a look at the profile of the person you're trying to reach and learning something. You need to be learning something about them. You really should be showing up. If you're a salesperson, you shouldn't be showing up and saying, well, what are you up to? What's important to you, and what are you working on? You should know these things. You at least should have some knowledge of what they've been working on. It may not be quite up to date in their social media feeds, but you obviously you can't just show up knowing nothing. That you're just wasting their time. So some of the contact campaigns that used social media were really interesting. In one, they took a look at the LinkedIn profiles, and pretty much every LinkedIn profile includes some mention of where these people went to school, and so they bought sweatshirts from each of their schools, and used the sweatshirts as the basis of. I mean, so they were sending it as a gift with a letter. The theme of the letter tied into the school where they went and so on. But I thought that was a pretty cool one because they took the time to identify where they went to school. I went to USC, and so if I got a sweatshirt from USC, it would be obvious that some thought went into that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then there was another one that was done by Jason Westbacher of mydocket.com, and they just wanted to. Sometimes these aren't about selling. Maybe I should restate that. Almost everything we do is selling.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say
it wasn't a transaction.
We're all selling all the time.
We are, and so this one wasn't to ask the recipients to become clients, but to become supporters. And he was reaching out to the sales thought leaders, many of the sales thought leaders I interviewed for the book, and what Jason wanted to do was just introduce the concept of my docket. And so he did this really, really amazing thing. He really drilled down in the profiles of these people he was reaching out to, and then came up with a gift, really thoughtful gift, based on whatever it is that they really found that he saw was important to each of these people. And so Matt Hines was one of the people on the list, and Matt had something on his Facebook page about raising chickens, and so. The piece that he got was a crate of, an egg crate, and it had plastic eggs within, and each egg had a message within it, and each of these messages were themed around chickens, but also around my docket and why Matt should pay attention. So this was a campaign they couldn't have sent to anyone else, So those are two really interesting uses of social media that helped open those contacts. And I've got to say, though, that as I've been promoting my book, I've been reaching out to some of the people who have big followings and are followers of mine. I don't know that a Twitter, that I follow you on Twitter is a real deep relationship.
No,
I don't think it is. But when I'm able to reach out to them and say, hi, I noticed that we follow each other, and I have I'm one of the Wall Street Journal cartoonists and an author. I have a book just coming out. And in the book, I've got 21 cartoons, each one heading a chapter in the book. Would you mind tweeting some of these cartoons as memes? And just reaching out to a handful of people this week, I ended up, reaching about 1 million people.
Very nice.
Just by reaching out and doing a direct message on Twitter. So social media is a great way to open these conversations and relationships.
So let's give some examples. We just have a few minutes left in terms of, something maybe a little more, $50 or $100 or something that, because if you're selling a service that's going to yield $100,000 a year in recurring revenue, you could spend $1,000 in acquisition.
Yeah.
So what's an idea that you write about in the book that people have used for that?
Well, a lot of the ideas that I found fall into the gift category. So you're giving a gift, and of course you've got to be a little bit careful about these. They can't just be bribes, obviously, but some people have come up with some pretty interesting ways of concocting gifts and giving them. And so one of the ones I think is kind of interesting is sending half of a gift, and that might fall into that $50 range. So if you were going to send, let's say, a remote control model of a Ferrari, the way that you would use this as half of a gift is you'd send the Ferrari, you'd send a note. You might talk about how you really want to rev things up for them, although you really don't want to be talking in that way. But you might end up theming some of the things you say that way. I know that people get the sense that all you're doing is talking at them instead of talking to them or with them.
Right.
But you send it and you say, I've got some things that I think can rev up your business. I know that I think that because we've done it with other companies in your industry, and I'd like to meet with you. And by the way, when we meet, then I'll bring the remote control unit so that you can use the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that those have worked, and the various variations on that theme. I mean, that remote control helicopters, a pair of shoes. So the left shoe shows up in a box, and they'll bring the other shoe when when the meeting happens. So those are kind of neat. But I'll tell you, the gifts that I think, and my cartoons are also gifts. But I'm just setting all that aside. I'm not really talking about what I do, but what I found and what I discovered through these interviews. One of the most interesting forms of gift that I saw being used was gifts that are actually visual metaphors for what the sender wants to do, or how they want to contribute somehow, contribute value somehow to the recipient. And one of the best users of this form of gift is Dan Waldschmidt. Dan runs a blog called Edgy Conversations. He has a book.
Been a guest on the show a couple times.
Yeah, I would imagine you know him quite well. And so Dan, in addition to being a really top-ranked sales blogger, is actually a turnaround specialist. And so he described to me the way that he goes out and finds and connects with his next clients. And what he does is he combs the paper, looking for stories of missed earnings estimates, and then he figures out who the CEO. Actually, probably CEO is probably mentioned in the story, but who they are, how to reach them. I mean, where to send something to them. Kind of easy stuff to find on the internet. And then he has this beautiful sword made up, and it's made by the prop maker who made all the swords for the movie Gladiator. So they're beautiful. And it's a full-size medieval sword, and he has the blade engraved with the CEO's name, and it's put into this beautiful wooden box. And in the box goes a handwritten letter from Dan saying, and of course he sends it by FedEx. And his note says, business is war, and I noticed that you lost a battle recently with the most recent earnings estimates being missed. And I just want to let you know that if you ever need any extra hands in battle, we've got your back. That's it. He's not even telling him what he does.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, hey, I saw that, wanted to reach out and give you something of value that, and more actually, if you were to call him up. And he said that he gets essentially 100% response rate to that. So I'm not the only one who's ever seen 100% response rates. But he gets almost 100% response rate. And the thing is, this costs him $1,000 a pop. But if he and not everybody, although essentially everybody he sends them to responds to him, not everybody becomes a client. But when he does sell a contract, it's worth a couple $1 million to him each time.
Right. Yeah,
so he can afford to send something that's worth $1,000.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he sells big ticket consulting projects and so on. And the thing that I think that the important point to talk about here is that these aren't gimmicks, and you make the distinction, an important distinction between authenticity and being gimmicky in your book. And for people that know Dan Waldschmidt, the sword that's Dan, because Dan is the most high energy, positive thinking, energetic person that you're fine. I mean that is Dan, right? That's so, and the cartoons are you. So it's really important to find something that not only reflects the interest of who you're sending it to, but that reflects your passions and your interests in a very authentic way.
There's one point I made in the book. I'm glad you bring this up, because these aren't stunts. And I made a differentiation between stunts and contact marketing, but also just the 20 categories of contact campaigns and all the examples I give in the book are not meant to be just a list of things you check off and that's what you go use. Instead, it's because this would be like seeing the Got Milk poster and saying, okay, that's how you advertise. So we sell keyboards, so we're gonna go with Got Keyboards, and we're gonna look really, really dumb, actually.
Right.
So it's not about copying what's there, but being inspired by what's there to come up with something that expresses you and expresses the value that you bring and the personality that you are, and it just expresses why they're going to, it really humanizes you. That's probably one of the most important points, just humanizes you so that they just wonder, well, who is this person behind, who thinks like this? This is amazing. I got to meet this person.
Exactly. And I think that's, a great point to sort of end on, is that like anything in sales, when you have that initial outreach, what are you trying to do? You're trying to stimulate the recipients or the buyer's curiosity. right? I'm curious to learn more. Yep. And, these contact campaigns you use are really a great vehicle to do that, to say, look, well, wow, this is really interesting. I need to learn out more about this person or this company that sent that to me.
Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Stu, thank you very much for joining me. My guest today has been Stu Heinecke. Stu, how can people find out more about you?
Well, they can. I guess one place you can go is my author website, which is stuheinecke.com. So StuHeinecke.com. And there you can find news about the book. You can also get a sneak preview of the book. So it's the foreword by J. Conrad Levinson, by the way, the author of all the guerrilla marketing books. Mm-hmm. I think that was the last thing he wrote before passing away. And then the introduction and first chapter. So stuheinecke.com is a place you can go. You can follow me on Twitter at @ByStuHeinecke. Again, ByStuHeinecke. Or you can call me. I'm happy to talk to people. 206-286-8668.
All right, there we go. Thank you very much. And remember, friends, make it a part of your day, every day, to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And subscribing to this podcast is a great way to do that, because then you'll make sure you don't miss any of my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Stu Heinecke, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining us. And until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.
Thanks for listening to the show. If you like what you heard and want to make sure you don't miss any upcoming episodes, please subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Stitcher.com. For more information about today's guest, visit my website at andypaul.com.